Perfect.
All right. So welcome everybody. We may have some more people coming in yet to our October Prairie Rapids Audubon Society meeting. Francis says we have $565 in our bird feed fund, which takes us
Went from 65 to 565.
565. Yep. And so we're
That was from last Friday.
okay. And so we're not quite halfway there for what we need for the year. So feel free to contribute some extra if you would like to the bird feed fund. We have $9,817 in our account right now. So we're in pretty good shape. We'd like to add more so we can do more with our grants when we send those applications out in January. Craig says our bird fundraising birdathon fundraiser has been moving along nicely. We're a little bit short of last year. We're about $321 short of what we took in last year. Last year we had 41 contributors. This year 37. So we'd like to make up that difference. And if you haven't contributed a little bit extra for our fundraising effort, feel free to do so. That'll be our contributors and things will be printed in our November newsletter. And we thank you for your generosity for that. That helps us go above and beyond our expenses to help conservation and education in our
Did he freeze again?
It looks
region.
like it.
Our 6 species total so far in September. We should be adding some more now with the winter, some of our winter birds coming around. Tomorrow's scheduled field trip at George Wythe has been canceled due to the more than probable rain. So it'll be done again next week on Wednesday morning at 8:30, same place at George Wythe. Meet at the kiosk there. That would be October 20th. An important date maybe to put on your calendar is the semi-annual REAP Congress. That's the Resource Enhancement and Protection Act. That's October 26th, Tuesday at Hartman Reserve. That counts all of our Prairie Rapids Audubon counties are represented at that meeting, except for Hardin, but it also includes Chickasaw. So there's 6 counties. It starts at 6:30 at Hartman Reserve and runs till 8. It's an opportunity for the public to have input on and suggestions to our state legislatures how to fund and what to do with the funds priority wise for the REAP. We keep asking every year for the state legislature to fully fund REAP. It's never been fully funded in the 27, 28 years it's been in existence. I'm hopeful this year with our state having a $1.2 billion surplus that somehow they may find 1% of that to go ahead and fully fund REAPs, especially the last couple of years when there's been a lot more people out fishing, hunting, hiking, biking, using our resources. So this may be the time to do it. But the public is welcome and they select about, I think it's a few representatives from our area to go to Des Moines in early January to participate as representatives for our region for REAP to make our concerns known. And it'd be great to have somebody from Prairie Rapids Audubon Society be a representative for not only for Prairie Rapids, but for our 6 county region here. So consider that. So we're starting to see some winter birds. We had a little bit of discussion earlier. Sparrows are coming around, seeing Lincoln sparrows, and we're seeing some towhees. We should start watching for waterfowl. hearing Lincoln sparrows, a lot of white-throated sparrows, still some warblers around. Be looking for orange crowned, common yellow throat. I had a house wren yet this morning. And so we might get some kind of rarity around here too. So keep us, if you see something, take a picture of it, send it to our website or send Candace or your sightings, or put it on eBird. That helps everybody out, the researchers and people that keep track of that stuff. See, next month, we invite you for our November meeting will be Chris Helzer, who's from the Nebraska Nature Conservancy. And several of us saw him present for the Day of Insects in Ames earlier in the year. He's a wonderful photographer and he has a really good message and he's a great speaker. So being that we've been not being able to meet in person as of yet for our Audubon, it gives us an opportunity to bring in speakers from far away. So to have Chris be able to be a part of one of our meetings is outstanding. So spread the word you want to see him. That'd be great. If you have a comment or a question or a sighting or something you'd like to share, feel free to add that to the chat portion on the bottom of the screen. We invite you to mute yourself if you haven't already. And if you don't want us looking at your picture as the presentation goes on, you can stop the video and you'll just get a blank there too. So being that we're still doing our Zoom meetings, we've been able to get a hold of Larry Reis for a speaker. He's up in the Decorah region, and he's a naturalist and natural resource manager for Winneshiek County. He's done that for 39 years. And maybe some of you remember a number of years ago, we did a field trip, Prairie Rapids Audubon field trip up to that region to Decorah. And Larry met us later at Lake Meyer, the headquarters for outside of Kalmar, which is the headquarters for Winneshiek County. And they have a nature center there. Larry's done some fabulous work on restoring some of the habitat there. And he was kind enough to take us around on a bird walk and show us plants, trees, birds, all kinds of things. And at that point, we knew right away that Larry's an outstanding personality, but has an extreme amount of knowledge on birds and our natural wonders of the world and how everything fits together. So we're really pleased to have him as our speaker. He's a Luther College grad and UNI grad, and a trout fisherman, outdoorsman extraordinaire, and a fossil collector too. We'll have to talk about that some more sometime. Plus other things. He's an author. I have his book. It's quite interesting on his nature observations in the Driftless region. He grew up in this area, and that's what his talk is on tonight, and to help us understand what's there in the Driftless region, and probably invite us to come up there this time of year, which is a great time to come up there. Isn't that right, Larry?
Oh man, this is going to be the perfect weekend, everybody. So if you don't have plans made already, head up this way. It's going to be a nice weekend. Beautiful weather, beautiful fall colors. Can't be beat.
So without further ado, let's welcome Larry to our presentation, and Candace will put him on the full screen. And again, later, if we'll have questions at the end of the program, or if you have a comment, use the chat. All right, thank you. Larry?
Thanks, Tom.
And again, anybody, if you have a glitchy connection, if you mute your video, it uses less bandwidth, and it should kind of help in that freezing kind of situation. So, but at any rate, all right, thanks. And I was just at the Driftless on Sunday, and it was gorgeous then. So I can't imagine how much more beautiful it's going to be. So, but yeah, I'm so looking forward to this presentation. So thank you, Larry, for being here.
Okay, well, thanks, Candace, and thanks, Tom, for that awesome introduction. And thanks for joining in, everybody, tonight to the program about Driftless Region Ecology. I hope you enjoy it. It's a fantastic place to visit, and I guess we'll get started. So anyway, the Driftless region looks different than most of the rest of Iowa. The Driftless region actually encompasses northeast Iowa, southeast Minnesota, southwest Wisconsin, kind of a little triangle here. And Driftless region means that it was basically missed by the glaciers. During the last million years, we had multiple glacial events that moved north out of the Arctic into the Midwest. And for some magical reason, they went right around this little area and hit most of the rest of the area, surrounding area. And driftless means that there was no glacial drift deposited here. When glaciers move south out of the North Country, they leave debris when they retreat, and that's drift. And so we don't have that here. The rest of Iowa has glacial drift. So that's why this is the driftless region. And the other neat thing, of course, about being in the driftless region is when those glaciers move south, they're big sheets of ice. They work like bulldozers, and they basically level the landscape. But that didn't happen here. So we've got our, steep hills and deep valleys, and that kind of looks a lot like Switzerland. So it's often referred to as the little Switzerland, at least of Iowa right here. Beautiful country, as you can see. So one of the kind of the main landscape features you'll see when you visit the driftless region here is our limestone outcrops. And they are kind of a driving force for the ecology of the area. They are kind of, you might say, the building blocks behind a lot of what we'll be talking about tonight. And you can see these limestone layers exposed in many places. A lot of the road cuts up here. As you're driving by or walking by, you'll notice on the limestone, it's not solid rock. There's lots of cracks and holes and things, and that's kind of, again, one of the features that help basically explain what we see in the landscape here. So the rocks here are sedimentary. So this used to be shallow ocean. So we've got limestone up here. That's the orange rock. We also have sandstone layers, not pictured here. But they're important aquifers and where a lot of the wells are drilled and people get their drinking water from. And then there are kind of smaller sections of shale. So the limestone, by the way, was basically the bodies of marine animals, their shells that were just kind of pressed together and turned into rock over time. The sandstone, of course, would have been beach habitats. The shale here, which is the gray layer, that is mud that turned to stone. And if you're a fossil hunter coming up to the driftless region, you want to find these shale layers because in those areas there, the fossils still typically are in like perfect form, and you can pick them whole out of the rock, which is super cool. And this is one of the neater fossils you'll find here in the driftless region. This is a Gastropod snail. It was living on the seafloor here about 450 million years ago during the Ordovician period. But besides the Gastropod snails, you can find gumdrop bryozoans, a neat algae called Receptaculites, or otherwise known as the Galena sunflower. We have squid fossils, and lots of seashells. Anyway, that's a little bit about fossil hunting here. We also have numerous springs in the countryside, and they supply a nice cold flow of water to our streams and rivers here. One neat thing about the springs, they always are basically showing up at the top surface of a shale layer, because that shale is water impermeable. So remember the cracks in the limestone, the water is filtering down to the limestone. When it hits the shale, it can't go down anymore. So it's got to go sideways. And if it can follow channels, it comes out on a hillside and exits as a spring. So like here at Malafi Springs, where we're looking at here, this is Malafi Springs State Preserve. Very beautiful place if you come up here to the Driftless. About a mile hike back to see the spring as it falls down into the upper Iowa River. That spring outcrops right atop a shale layer, as do all of our springs. In Decorah, you'll have Dunning Spring and Seaver Springs at the Decorah Fish Hatchery, numerous other springs in the area too. So a lot of the limestone here looks pitted and again cracked. That disfigured limestone is due to the fact that the water is an acid and eats away at the limestone, which is basic. So again, that disfiguring process is called karst topography, is I guess the outcome of all that activity there. So the limestone layers here are considered karst topography. And there are some very unique environments that occur in classic karst topography like we have here in Northeast Iowa, because again, the water over time is eating away the limestone. And sometimes that forms some pretty, again, unique environments. If you go underground here, you could enter cold water cave. Access is restricted now. It used to be a little easier to get down in there, but there's over 15 miles of subterranean passageways in a cold water cave, which is right here in Winneshiek County. It's a cave that is, I guess, well, it's like a stream that's flowing through the cave. So you would have to wear a wetsuit if you do go in there. But here's, you can see the calcium carbonate that is basically precipitating, that kind of forms the stalactites and stalagmites here. The calcium carbonate is pure limestone. So again, when the limestone dissolves, due to the water up above, it precipitates back out here in its pure form down in cold water cave. So pretty spectacular sight to see. It's about 150 feet from the surface of the ground to get down into the cave, which is accessed by a very small opening and a ladder that you would climb down in. Anyway, algific talus slopes, another cool example of karst topography at work here in the Driftless region. They are limestone slopes with a layer of talus, where again, the limestone has basically kind of broken away and formed a layer of rock here. So these algific talus slopes are otherwise known as cold air slopes. The temperature coming out of the cracks in the limestone stays cold year round. If you're at one of these slopes in the summertime, it could be 100 degrees. You can put your hand into one of those openings and it would give you frostbite. Here's a little climate monitoring station here where researchers monitor the temperatures on these algific talus slopes. And they are home to some very rare plants and animals. That's the reason that scientists are interested in these slopes here. So a little bit about an algific talus slope and what makes it. It's a very specialized habitat. A bunch of different things have to come together. First of all, you need massive limestone bluffs or blocks, limestone, that are north facing. South facing slopes are out of the question because they get too hot in the summer. But in their winter and early spring, snow melt, again, just flows down into all those cracks in the limestone. Remember, the limestone's full of cracks and it freezes there. Okay, so this is kind of what it looks like inside that massive limestone layer. Ice all over the place in there. And it just stays frozen all summer long. on those, in those, again, cool environments. By the way, if you've ever heard of Decorah Ice Cave, that is not an elchific talus slope. This cave down here does get ice that forms in the summer, but that is not the same process of the ice that forms inside the elchific talus slope and creates that unique environment. So on the elchific talus slope, the thing that kind of makes that whole thing work is up at the top of those limestone bluffs, there are sinkholes. So you've got to have the north facing slope that has the ice in it. You have to have the sinkhole. If either of those is missing, no elchific talus slope. Anyway, so in the summertime, and if you don't know what a sinkhole is, that's another karst feature there where, again, those cracks get enlarged by the dissolving action of the rainwater over time. Little cracks form big cracks, and think of it as like small mine shafts. Eventually, the cracks get big enough, the openings that the surrounding land falls into the sinkhole. So again, usually they aren't an open hole, but they're covered with dirt, but air can still flow through that dirt and down through those shafts. And so on summer days when the wind is blowing, the hot air blows down through the sinkholes over the ice and then comes out the sides of those cliffs. And the result is that it's a cold air habitat all year long. And this Iowa golden saxifrage here has been growing in the area since the Pleistocene period. And everywhere else in Iowa and most of the whole rest of the United States, basically, after the glaciers retreated north, the Iowa golden saxifrage died out. But in these little refuges, these elchific talus slopes where the climate stayed just like the glacial period, they've survived. There is Iowa golden saxifrage growing in North America now, but you've got to go up into northern Canada to find it. So again, a long way between there and here. So pretty amazing. Likewise, the Iowa Pleistocene snail lives on these elchific talus slopes. This is a snail that was thought to have gone extinct at the end of the Pleistocene period and was only known from the fossil record until it was refound alive, growing on these elchific talus slopes, which again, to them, it feels just like it's still the Pleistocene period here. Some other plants that you'll find on the elchific talus slopes that like colder climate, you'll find the northern bluebell there. If you've been up along the north shore of Lake Superior in the springtime, you'll find it blooming there, but it also blooms right here in Winnesheek County. Beautiful. Ditto for the showy lady slipper, which I think is Minnesota's state flower. Again, kind of likes those cool North Country habitats, and you can still find it on some of the elchific talus slopes here in Northeast Iowa. In Winnesheek County, probably maybe the most famous of the plants on these elchific talus slopes is the northern monkshood. We do not have northern monkshood here in Winnesheek County. It's found in Fayette and Clayton and probably some other, maybe Dubuque County, but for whatever reason, we don't have the northern monkshood right here in Winnesheek County. So if you're looking for elchific talus slopes, and sometimes there may be new ones out there to find, some clues to look for them in the landscape would be white birch. That's these trees right here. They like cold climates. They're common again up in northern Minnesota and Canada, quite rare, growing wild in Iowa, but again, they grow on cool north-facing slopes and often in the vicinity of an elchific talus slope. So that's a good time to look for them now in late fall. There was birch trees and likelihood of elchific talus slope. Another plant that would maybe indicate an elchific talus slope is nearby would be Canada yew. So that's this little evergreen shrub right here. That's all the taller it grows. Get some beautiful little red berries on it late in the summer. But again, that likes cool north-facing or kind of a moist habitats, and something to look for if you're looking for your own elchific talus slope. usually bordering the algific talus slopes. Again, remember they're on cool north-facing slopes. You'll have sugar maple forest, maple basswood forest, the climax forest type. Believe it or not, there are no trees growing on an algific talus slope because it's just too cold. The tree roots can't take. But anyway, if you're walking through these maple basswood forests, there's some really neat plants to see there. Yellow lady slipper, more common than showy lady slipper, which is kind of confined to the algific talus slopes, but yellow lady slipper still a beautiful find on these cool north-facing slopes here in the Driftless region. Rattlesnake plantain. It's not a plantain at all, like that little weed that grows in your sidewalk cracks, but this is an orchid. And look at the delightful leaf pattern right there. And here's the flower of the downy rattlesnake plantain right here. Surprisingly, once the flower is done blooming, the plant dies. So yeah, their last hurrah. Anyway, and these are evergreen leaves, so you could find them even now in the fall after the flowers are done. If you're up here in the springtime on these shady north-facing slopes dominated again by maple basswood, you might find squirrel corn, cousin to the Dutchman's breeches, but much more rare. It kind of looks like an albino bleeding heart rather than a little pair of pants right there. And usually I have to find about 1,000 Dutchman's breeches to find one squirrel corn. So that kind of gives you an idea of their abundance. Twin leaf, another neat little plant here that kind of likes those cool north-facing slopes here in the Driftless region. Again, the leaves kind of look like green butterfly wings right there, or twin leaf, as they're called. They look a lot like bloodroot, but they bloom about a month later. So usually up here, that would be about the middle part of May if you're looking for twin leaf. Ginseng, plant that everybody likes to find and would probably like to dig up. You know, a root like that today would probably be worth about $100. And unfortunately, it's been about dug into oblivion today. But again, its a classic habitat would be on a cool north-facing slope. There were some little red berries before they fell off, but there's what the leaves look like. And of course, the ginseng root, the root of life, and supposed to have magical powers to keep us alive in perpetuity. But modern medicine tells us there's probably no benefit whatsoever. But if you want to try it, can't hurt. One of my favorite little small trees growing on these maple basswood slopes would be American hornbeam. I just love the bark on these trees right here, which is kind of fluted. So it gives rise to the common name of musselwood. Also, it goes by the name of blue beech, but a beautiful little tree that, again, kind of likes these cool north-facing habitats. So right now, sugar maples are in their glory, golden color. This weekend should be just about the prime time. If you're looking to see a site like this, you just may find it this weekend. Not this weekend, maybe next weekend even, it should be pretty good. So again, sugar maple trees, just, you know, otherwise you probably have to go to Vermont or somewhere to find color like that. But, you know, the sugar maples aren't done giving us some kind of a golden glory in the fall. In the springtime here, people that have maple forest tap the trees, and there's a couple of places where you can even go and have pancakes and pure maple syrup during the maple sugar season up here. So historically, the drier and warmer south-facing types of hillsides and just woodlands would have been dominated by oak trees, much like an open woods or savanna habitat. And the classic, or I guess you might say the dominant oak tree in those situations would have been the bur oak. Again, they have a very thick, corky bark that could withstand the occasional prairie fire. And so other trees were kind of burned up, and that gave these bur oaks a nice, you know, space to grow, and their branches often spread out about as wide as they are tall. So just a gorgeous tree. The sad truth, though, is that, you know, these these big majestic bur oaks could survive prairie fires, but they couldn't survive the plow. And so most of them are gone now. This bur oak that I took a picture of probably 15 years ago was cut down and now is a cornfield again. So yeah. Anyway, we do have a few oak savannas up here. This would have been what most of the woodlands would have been. You know, the actual maple basswood forest, at least here in Winnesheek County, was fairly restricted. We would have had more oak savanna in Winnesheek County proper here. And we still have a few oak savannas around, but unfortunately, a lot of that habitat has disappeared. And, you know, with it, some wonderful plants and animals that at least are in decline. They are home now, pretty much the last bastion for the rusty patch bumblebee. They basically nest in the woodlands and then feed on the prairie flowers for their nutrition source. But you can kind of see the little rusty patches right there on segment 2 on that guy. But we have several populations of the rusty patch bumblebee right here in Winnesheek County. The red-headed woodpecker, their favorite place to nest would have been oak savannas back in the day, and that's still the habitat. They prefer an open oak woods. They love to eat acorns, and their population has plummeted in you know, the past decades as those oak forests disappeared, or at least grew in with less desirable trees. At least in my opinion, the oak is the most desirable tree out there. And if you're looking for scarlet tanagers up here, they actually like those oak savannas. So where I find most of my scarlet tanagers here in the spring and summer is in these open oak woods anyway, kind of semi-savanna habitat. Another kind of declining kind of tree species that we have up here is the quaking aspen. Besides the oak trees, the oak savannas, these little kind of aspen copses would have been about the only trees out in the prairie habitat. And when I was young, there were still lots of these quaking aspen stands scattered around the county. They basically disappeared now, either again, just cut down and turned into farmland, but mostly just overgrown with other trees, and they need full sun in order to thrive. And as the other trees grew up, they just winked out, unfortunately. And for those of you, of course, in the birding community, you know that the ruffed grouse is pretty hard to come by. These days, we used to get it fairly common on Christmas bird counts up here, and it's lucky to get this bird now. But again, they depend on those quaking aspen stands. And the DNR is working on some of their grounds to promote the aspen again, to try and bring this bird back. You know, again, 30 or 40 years ago, it was quite common to see ruffed grouse all over the county, and I haven't seen one now for about 5 years. Woodcock would also benefit from the quaking aspen coming back here. They, like the ruffed grouse, like to nest in kind of that thick understory that is usually found with the quaking aspen. And by the way, ruffed grouse depend on the quaking aspen because that's a major food supply for them in the winter, eating the catkins, the male flowers. But anyway, so if you're in an oak savanna or an open oak woods, depending on the season, you can find some pretty cool mushrooms there. One of my favorites that usually beats the morels by about a week, and you're not going to find morels in an oak woods anyway. But if you're kind of getting the urge to go out and look through different woodlands, if you're in an oak woodland, then you'll find one of my favorite fungi. This is about the middle of April, the devil's urn or the black tulip. But again, usually associated with oak. Come back in the summer and you'll find the golden chanterelles. You know, a lot of people like morel mushrooms, and I like morels, but these golden chanterelles taste maybe 3 to 4 times better, if you can believe that. And then in late summer, you can find what's called the sulfur shelf, commonly known to mushroom hunters as the chicken of the woods. And they fruit either from the base of an oak tree, sometimes up high on a dying or dead oak tree, or on a fallen oak branch. And then in the fall now, a little past the prime, maybe 2 weeks ago, I found my last hen of the woods, not chicken of the woods, hen of the woods here. But this is a fantastic mushroom here. The feathers, again, taste just like a kind of a fried chicken breast. And again, you're only going to find these hen of the woods growing right at the base of the biggest bur oak or white oak tree, sometimes red oak that you'll find out in the forest. These are, again, highly edible. So again, the oak forests here are just wonderful habitat. Oak trees are far and away, you know, the best trees for a lot of different wildlife as far as insect, birds, and animals go. If you want to find a little gray squirrel out in the wild, either look around oak trees where there's acorns, or walnut trees where there's black walnuts. You know, I don't have a picture of these squirrels with an acorn. I guess they eat them too fast. This is the eastern fox squirrel, again found in a classic oak habitat or walnut habitat there. And then of course we have plenty of white-tailed deer here in the Driftless region. Most of Iowa nowadays has pretty good deer populations, at least across eastern Iowa. But again, historically, oak woodlands would have been a feasting time for them now in the fall, feeding on the acorns. And some of those bucks up here in the Driftless region grow big, feeding on acorns, soybeans, and corn. And they benefit too from all those steep hills and valleys that make it hard for hunters to harvest a big guy like that. Wild turkeys, you know, they used to think that wild turkeys could never make a comeback in Iowa because we just didn't have, you know, enough oak habitat for them. But they finally tried and brought them back, and we've got the eastern wild turkey descended from Missouri here now, and they're thriving again throughout eastern Iowa, but doing very well here in the Driftless region. And for people that you know like to hunt deer or turkeys, here's your chance for, you know, a turkey trophy in the springtime. Lots of wild turkeys up here in northeastern Iowa. If you're an angler and like to try trout fishing, the Driftless region here is about as good as it gets. My son and I were just out in Montana, and we had great fishing there, but came back to Iowa, and we actually caught more trout in a day in Iowa than we did in Montana. So that might tell you something. And this is Paint Creek. I guess Candace was down there last weekend and photographed some trout. Rainbow trout in the stream. The water's crystal clear. You know, amazingly, we have natural reproduction of trout in more than 90 streams now in northeastern Iowa. When I was young, that total was 0. So again, DNR working in conjunction with NRCS and landowners have done a wonderful job of protecting the water, which you need clean water for the trout to reproduce. And the trout streams come in a variety of sizes. You can jump across this one, but I can vouch for the fact that is full of trout. And we even have trout in some of the rivers up here. This happens to be the Yellow River in Almaquee County, which is a blue ribbon trout stream. So again, the cold water is what they need. And our trout streams here in the Driftless region are what would be called a spring creek. So they're cold and they're very fertile, which again is just makes a fantastic trout fishery. So one of the things that make these such a great trout fishery is our limestone. Remember that classic karst topography, the water erodes the limestone, the calcium carbonate comes in here into the stream, and calcium carbonate is the building block for the aquatic invertebrates here. They need that to build their exoskeletons. So without that calcium carbonate, you're not going to have many aquatic insects. That's what the trout feed on. So tip over any rock in one of our cold water streams, and you're likely to see a bunch of little cases. These are made of rocks. Some will be made of plant material. Those are the homes of caddisflies. they build those. So that's like a turtle, but they carry around their home on their, on their back, so to speak, right there. And if you look close, you'll see one of those little caddisflies crawling out right there. So they eat diatoms or algae. A few of them are predators on other insects. They'll live in that nymphal, or you might say naiad form, for maybe a year or two, depending on the species. And then they transform into the adult. The adults only live a few days, enough time to mate, and basically the females lay their eggs on the water. The adult caddisfly looks just about like a little brown moth. Some will be brown, some will be black. But again, a major source of food for the trout. So if you're throwing a little imitation of either an adult caddis, or even better, one of those larval caddis in the trout stream, when the trout see that, their eyes light up and they're going to grab it. And you're likely to be tangling with a trout. So one of the other major foods for trout here would be mayflies. And this is a nymphal mayfly right here. Again, the mayfly naiad. And some of the mayfly nymphs live under rocks like this one would. It's called a clinger. Others burrow down into the stream bottom. But again, they're going to live under those rocks right there for maybe a year or two, and then transform again into the adult, which, the nymphs swim up to the top, the adult pops out of the shell, and they only live a day or two. And the trout, you might say the challenge for the trout fisher would be to match the hatch, because when the mayflies are hatching, the trout usually want only an imitation mayfly that's the same color, size, and shape as whatever's rising. And if you're throwing something different, they totally ignore it. So in the early summer, you want to be throwing something that looks like this light Cahill right here. So again, one nice thing about the mayflies and the caddisflies, they're indicators of good water quality. So the fact that we have a lot of mayflies and caddisflies in the streams tell us that our water quality up here is quite good, which is very encouraging. They don't tolerate pollution well. So again, things are looking up here. Now, again, if you're out trout fishing, and especially fly fishing, you can see it's kind of a challenge. Our trout streams are not huge rivers, but if you can get that cast in there and present the fly properly, you get some wonderful rewards. This is the brook trout, which is the only trout that's native to Iowa. Ancestors of this trout right here have been swimming in the streams here in northeastern Iowa since the end of the Pleistocene period. So that's saying something right there. And they're all descendants of one population that was found in South Pine Creek, right here in Winneshiek County. And right now, the brook trout are in there. They're spawning right now in the fall. Brown trout are the most common trout that you'll encounter in most of the streams here. They used to be stocked. They arrived from Europe. Sometimes they're called the German brown trout. Maybe that's where some of the original trout came from, but they've naturalized now. And in most of our streams, this is the trout that is reproducing. And the DNR doesn't even stock them anymore. They tend to be kind of wary, difficult to catch. And so the DNR does supplement our trout populations with rainbow trout. Again, non-native, they come from the Western United States. There's limited reproduction of rainbow trout, only known in a couple streams here in Northeast Iowa. They've been hatchery bred for so long that the genetics just isn't there to be a kind of a, you might say, a healthy wild strain. And the DNR stocks them because they're a little less intelligent, I guess, than say a brown trout or a brook trout, and easier for the anglers to catch. But again, a beautiful fish. A couple other fish that you'll find in our cold water streams here. This one here is called a Slimy Sculpin. They make a fantastic trout food for the bigger trout. So they're usually hiding under rocks, kind of like a crayfish would. But a neat little fish. They're sometimes called the miller's thumb. They're about the size of your thumb and kind of flattened there. The other fish I like to find in our trout streams is the rainbow darter. So this is actually related to a yellow perch, but much smaller, beautiful. And again, they're eating some of the little mayflies, caddisflies, diatoms, and algae in the streams here. Here's the Upper Iowa River, a classic driftless river for sure, or driftless region river flowing through the bluff country. Just beautiful now in the fall. This is the site you'll see if you come up here to Winnebago County or Alameda County or Clayton, Fayette County this weekend. But the Upper Iowa River is famous again for the limestone palisades. These cliffs here tower 150 feet above the river. The best way to see them would be to take a canoe or a kayak down the river, and you're going to float right under them. Pretty spectacular sight to see. Take your fishing pole along there too. If you're an angler, smallmouth bass are abundant in the Upper Iowa River. And they like these rocky rivers, again, with lots of crayfish. And, you know, they're not as big as a largemouth bass, but if you're into fishing, they fight a lot better, and they like to jump. So again, if you're either fishing or canoeing, kayaking down the Upper Iowa River, or you name, could be the Turkey River or the Yellow River, look up now and then. I can almost guarantee you'll see a bald eagle. They've made a remarkable comeback, as you know, here in Iowa. We had 0 bald eagle nests here, you know, back in the 60s and 70s due to DDT. And now we have over at least 100 nesting pairs in the area. So pretty cool and remarkable to see. At the opposite end of the bird scale, you know, the American redstart. Most of our wood warblers head up to Canada and northern Minnesota. We have a few. We like the yellowthroat and the yellow warbler that nest here. But the redstart is another one that likes to nest right alongside the streams and rivers. So if you're canoeing, kayaking, fishing, you're almost sure of seeing them in the summer as well. So most of our trees here are deciduous. As far as native trees go, we have a couple native conifer trees in northeast Iowa as well. One of those would be the white pine. Of course, you know, White Pine Hollow in Dubuque County is rather famous, the state preserve there, but that is, white pine is one of only 3 conifer trees native to Iowa, and grew historically, again, along some of the dry bluff tops along the Upper Iowa River and again, along the Mississippi River back in the day there. And then the other conifer tree of note would be the balsam fir. That's the one that kind of looked like little kind of a Christmas trees sticking up here along the limestone bluff. And this is taken at Bluffton Fir Stand, State Preserve, which is again up by Bluffton. So you could see them, probably a site just like that this weekend. If you're just a little bit east of Bluffton, you can see that right from the road. So we have some goat prairies here in the driftless region as well. And by the way, here's the third conifer tree that's native to Iowa. We don't really want to see these on the goat prairies, but that's the eastern red cedar tree. They have taken over a lot of what used to be goat prairies. And goat prairies are just dry prairie habitat that is so high and inaccessible that only goats can get there, I guess. But if you're willing to do the work to climb up there, you'll find side oats grama. This is a little prairie grass that doesn't take well to competition, but it does really well on those dry, kind of rather sterile sites up there. Cylindric blazing stars, the flower. You'll probably be familiar with some of our other blazing stars in Iowa, which might grow about waist high. Cylindric blazing star, about 6 inches high. So again, it doesn't do well in a normal prairie, but on these goat prairies, it thrives. The little tawny edge skipper here, one of several skipper species that you can find on our goat prairies up here. And some of the skippers in northeast Iowa are quite rare, again, just due to the habitat being so limited. So a lot of the goat prairies are kind of littered with little limestone outcrops here. And again, those are some cool places for some plants to grow. This is a little purple cliff break which basically, again, doesn't like competition. So it just grows right out of the solid rock. Notice the purple stems. So on this is a type of fern. So again, a fern growing on a dry goat prairie. Yeah. Six-line race runner. This is a lizard that lives up here in northeastern Iowa, has 6 stripes across its back. And let me tell you, they can really race. If you blink, they're gone. Some snakes to see on the goat prairies. I guess if you're not into snakes, you might want to not venture up there. But this is the gopher snake, which is the largest snake in Iowa. They'll top out at up to 9 feet long. They commonly called a bull snake. But they like to eat gophers and chipmunks and, you know, any little ground squirrels and things that they can find out in the countryside. But they do quite well up here in bluff country. You could also stumble across the timber rattlesnake. So you do want to watch your step if you're heading up to a goat prairie right here. Surprisingly, they will hibernate in the exact same place as the bull snakes or gopher snakes, and oftentimes mix right together in their hibernaculums, which are on some of the sunny south-facing slopes, opposite of an ogific talus slope. The view from up on these goat prairies is spectacular. If again, it takes a little effort to get up there, but when you're done huffing and puffing, you can get some fantastic photos. At the opposite end of the extreme from the goat prairie, we have some fens here in northeastern Iowa, which are alkaline bogs. So, you know, up in northern Minnesota, Wisconsin, the bogs are acidic. Here, due to the dissolving limestone, they're alkaline. But again, they are kind of nestled down in some of the valleys here. The Baltimore checker spot, one of my favorite finds on a fen. And these are usually out in the latter half of June, have the Baltimore Orioles' favorite colors. And these guys are pretty much restricted to fens because the food source for their caterpillars is white turtlehead that for whatever reason only likes to grow on these alkaline fens as well. Notice that the flowers are kind of formed into like little turtle heads there poking out of their white shells. Either that or that's just the whole turtle. But anyway, now in the fall, greater fringe gentian, another flower that's pretty much restricted to fens here in the Driftless region. And note the beautiful fringes on that flower right there. So here's just the countryside, which is kind of quiet and charming, a wonderful place to visit or live up here. The fields and the farms both tend to be small by Iowa's standards. And again, in the fall, it looks very scenic if you go for a drive out in the countryside. You'll notice that a lot of our fields are planted on the contour, again, to prevent soil erosion, which is, you know, it looks pretty and does a job of, again, saving the soil on these fairly fragile habitats up here. And luckily, most of the farmers up here are still into grazing, where, you know, they've got, you might say, free range or grass-fed beef rather than raised on CAFOs. And, you know, CAFOs and the Driftless are not a good fit. Some people are trying to force the issue, and we hope that doesn't happen. But anyway, you know, the prehistoric people that lived here for thousands of years, you know, didn't damage the environment at all and left us a wonderful natural heritage. And hopefully we can do the same for our ancestors. So thanks for taking a look at, you know, the Driftless region, and hope you enjoyed the show. So that's it. If anybody's got questions, we can do that.
I'd just like to say, wow, thank you so much, Larry. Larry regularly contributes his gorgeous photos to our Flickr photo feed, which you can look at on our Prairie Rapids website. So just beautiful pictures of birds and plants and, you know, mammals. So any rate, I've got a quick question. What are CAFOs? That's a term that's unfamiliar to me.
Oh, that confined animal
Okay.
breeding operation. So,
Okay,
you know,
I
if
see.
we have like 10,000 cows in one little pen, which is kind of the way that most livestock is raised across Iowa now, as far as cattle and pigs go. And, you know, they're trying to put one in right on the upper end of Bloody Run Creek over in Alameda County, which is, you know, would just be a tragedy. You know, if it, a manure spill there would, you know, end that creek as a wonderful trout stream, and just you know, it flows through beautiful country. So yeah, that's,
Yeah.
So I have a question, since you just brought that up. What do you think the chances are of beating that and not having it done?
well, the DNR approved it.
I know
So
that.
yeah, so the chances of stopping it now are probably, unfortunately, very slim. You know, I don't know if you've been up there and seen the people that are putting that, they actually have everything built. It's not like they're going to start from scratch. They went ahead and built it. So, I mean, everything's just ready to go. All their, you know, all their is the go ahead. And, you know, with Iowa's political climate, I just don't see the courts putting a hold on it, unfortunately. Yeah. So it's probably going to happen. And then, you know, I don't know, it'll be one of those, we told you. And, you know, maybe someday the political and they can put a stop to that stuff. But yeah, unfortunate.
You know, oops. I don't know if you can hear me or not.
Yeah.
You can. Okay, good. My internet connection has been in and out all the whole program, and it was a wonderful program, Larry. And it's you can't wait to get up there and do some exploring. I know I can't wait to get back up there. It's a favorite region. But back to the Bloody Run thing. I remember at one time they built some highways over by Engeldinger Marsh and also by Eddyville, and the highways were built and went right up either to the marsh or to the prairie right outside of Eddyville. And with the idea that once they got the permit, they're going to just go right through those areas. And it was stopped. And it was from a public outcry. There's enough people that made us think about it, that both places, they rerouted the highway at a lot of extra expense to save those wonderful areas for us. So I would hope it's not too late for that, but you know, you say that, I would say you build it, then they will come. I think it means that they built it, we will come and have something to say about it.
I would hope, you know, that's the case, Tom, you know, and people, you know, we've kind of been fighting it for, you know, a good long while now. And yeah, it just seems to keep grinding ahead, unfortunately. So, you know, maybe, yeah, it would be nice if somehow, you know, enough people would put pressure. And I don't know even where the pressure should go at this point, you know, the DNR or legislate, you know, it seems like, you know, the powers that be really want it to go, and yeah, the environment doesn't seem to matter too much. But yeah, maybe if, you know, if enough people would raise the issue, it would probably stop. But, you know, it would take a sea change, I guess, probably in public sentiment to make that.
So here's a question. Why did the DNR introduce the rainbow trout? And those are the trout that I saw were the rainbows there at the Paint Creek there at Yellow River. But why did they introduce them when there were the brook and the brown trout present?
Well, so the deal is this, that the brook trout were not known in Iowa. That South Pine Creek was just discovered, say, in the last 20 or 30 years. So they were brook trout were thought to be extinct. The brown trout and the rainbow trout were both to Iowa way back in the 1800s. and have been stocked here ever since. And that stocking of both those trout continued up until very recently. And the DNR just quit stocking brown trout in the last 10 years because they started reproducing so well on their own. Now, the DNR has continued to stock the rainbow trout because brown trout they just don't like to bite. When people go fishing, I mean, part of the thing that funds the trout program is having people buy a trout license. And if they can't catch trout, they're not going to buy the license. So they continue raising the rainbow trout and releasing them just so people can have fish to catch. If you go out and try and catch a brown trout day in and day out, they're abundant in the streams, and I can catch them. And Tom, if he's fly fishing, could catch them on a fly very easily, but they rarely take a live bait or what people are used to using. So yeah,
That makes sense. Thank you. What other questions for Larry?
Yes, I have a question. We were up in Northeast Iowa last weekend, and we did not see many colored leaves, but we did come across a National Wildlife Refuge. It has to do with the Driftless area. I can't remember the name of it. Do you know anything about this new National Wildlife Refuge?
Ooh.
I'm trying to, the only National Wildlife Refuge that I can think of up here would be the Algific, something associated maybe with the Algific slopes. There may be an Algific slope National Wildlife Refuge.
That wasn't the name.
Otherwise,
I think it was near Farmington.
otherwise there's the other refuge that's huge up here is the Upper Mississippi Fish and Wildlife Refuge.
Yeah, this is a part of that.
So yeah, that extends pretty much
No,
all of Upper Mississippi River.
I'm talking about a smaller area within that. I thought it was near Farmington, maybe. I don't have it.
It
on
was
my-
near where?
We were up. Seemed to me like it was near Farmington.
Farmington?
Farmersburg.
Farmersburg. Well, that sounds like part of the Algific Slope area. There is an Algific Slope over by Farmersburg that I know of. So, but they may have changed the name to something different.
I wish
I'm
I could
not
remember.
aware.
I have a picture, but I can't see the pictures when I'm doing this. But there was a kiosk with some signage and explaining what was going on. There was not much else there besides this small kiosk you pulled off the road, and with some signs and some, some text and stuff. Then it was a large.
Did the kiosk mention what they were? What the
About the slopes and about the driftless area, but I can't remember the name of the refuge. But okay.
I just found it, David. So
Yeah.
Thanks for mentioning it. It is called Driftless Area National Wildlife Refuge. And you're right, it's by Farmersburg, just south of there. And it is close to Dry Hollow, if that
That was
gives
Dry Hollow. That was it.
other people a frame of reference. Oh, sounds like I need to go back up there and spend some more time.
There were several units, and Dry Hollow was one of them.
Neat. Yeah, that sounds like it's associated probably with protecting those Algific slopes. It would be the main thing if it's broke up like that into those different units.
Okay.
But that they've evidently called it now, what was it, Candace? The Driftless Area?
Driftless
National-
Area National Wildlife Refuge.
Cool.
Yeah.
I have not been to any of those sites, so.
It
I'll
must
have
be
to,
fairly new because it's not in my old map here. My newer map had it in it. That's how we found it.
Yeah, it's near, well, it's in Clayton County. And also near Roberts Creek State Preserve.
maybe I'll put a plug in for a program next year on this area.
Yes, please. I think so. It's a great idea.
Yeah. Yeah. Those areas there, that's where they have the northern monkshood on those sites there. Yep.
Shall we mention the globally significant bird area there in the Driftless area?
What's that now, Candace?
The globally significant bird area there in Yellow River State Forest, primarily
Well,
because of the Cerulean Warblers, correct?
right, yeah, the Cerulean Warbler, definitely their, you might say stronghold is in the Yellow River Forest there for sure. Yeah, and yeah, if you go up there in the springtime, yeah, look way up in the treetops and, you know, if you're, well, you can find them scattered around in different places there, but yeah, that is, you know, beautiful country to see any time of year. In the winter time, you'll see a lot of rough-legged hawks down there at the Yellow River State Forest. And yeah, again, probably a likely place to potentially see something like ruffed grouse there too. But yeah, it's a very neat place to visit. Yeah.
So our chapter has helped with grant funds to support John Straver's research on the Cerulean Warblers, which is, and also the Iowa Ornithological Union provided some grant funds for his research as well. And that's one of the main reasons, or one of the strong reasons, that that area was designated as a globally important bird area because of that particular species.
Yeah. John's done some wonderful work. I think Paul Scrady too has been kind of involved with some of that recently now too. And they found some, you know, new nesting areas and yeah, it's very actually encouraging, you know, to see that there's probably more Cerulean Warblers around than we once thought.
Yes, yeah.
At least in that small area.
Larry, this is Craig. I think all of us have done a lot of reading and seen magazines and stuff and discussions on Northeast Iowa. I've been up there fishing and everything else, but this was just an excellent presentation.
Yes.
As far as I'm concerned, it brought some things together, especially your description of the algific processes. And I really appreciate your presentation tonight.
Well, thanks
That's
so
all.
much.
Yeah, just making a
Appreciate
comment.
that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So what is your favorite species or aspect of the Driftless region? And it's probably hard to choose.
Yeah, you know, it's just a very peaceful place, you know, to live, Candace. You know, I don't like cities, I guess. So you know, the nice thing about it up here, you know, after work you can go out and into a woodland, and we have up here we have so many public you know, natural areas to visit, and you can go out even to a place like Cardinal Marsh, which, you know, I mean, it's not driftless, but it's a wonderful place to bird, which I like to do. And I can go out to Cardinal Marsh and I'm the only person out there most of the time. A little different now in hunting season because you have a few hunters around, but far, you know, spring and summer, winter, you're pretty much there by yourself. And yeah, you know, that to me is kind of very rewarding, I guess. And the reason you can find peace and solitude up here. And then again, if you're into the outdoors, I used to hunt. I don't anymore, but I still fish and hunt for fossils. And, you know, I can do those any day of the week. So that's kind of fun too. But, and then the scenery, you know, it's just spectacular. If you like to canoe and kayak, yeah, it's just the whole bundle. But again, pretty much, you know, the nice thing about it would be it's a well-kept secret as to, you know, it's beauty and scenery. So, but now you guys know. So
I would agree.
Follow-up question. Do you have any favorite county-run campsites that you might direct us to?
well, if you come up here, yeah, where I'm at right now, our offices are in Lake Meyer Park. We're kind of, you might say, on the edge of the Driftless here, but it's again on this weekend here, we have about 40 sites, but I'm guessing if 10 of them are used, you know, that would be a busy weekend right now, David. So again, if you like camping in a big crowd, this is not where you want to be. But if you kind of like quiet camping and you're close, the Cora campground is really nice, but that's right into Cora, and that's usually quite busy and can be hard to get a spot there. We have another campground up at Kendallville, which is right on the Upper Iowa River at the start of the float that takes you through the best, you might say, scenery along the Upper Iowa River. And that's a wonderful campground there too. That's a little more. So again, that, you know, it's a longer drive for people because that's about as close as you can get to Minnesota and still be in Iowa.
This Lake Meyer is camp park. Does it have a campground?
Yeah, Lake Meyer, that's where I'm at right now. So yep, that's our campground here, which I said is a very nice campground.
And what's the town nearby?
It's about a mile south of Kelmar,
Kalmar.
or
Okay.
about 4 miles north of Fort Atkinson on Highway 24.
Okay.
So there are private campgrounds up here as well. Once you get up along the Upper Iowa River, there's White's Campground at Bluffton and Randy's Campground at Bluffton, and then there's Harvest Farms Campground at Kendallville, and what's the other one? There's another one, a family farm. But there's numerous private campgrounds that, you know, you can stay at too. I don't know what their rates might be a little more than we keep our rates down in our campgrounds. It's $15 a night for a camper, and you've got electric hookup. There's no water hookup, but we have showers and restrooms. So.
Well, I've been very pleased with the county campgrounds around the state. So I look forward to getting back up to your area.
Yeah, I think, you know, I haven't really been to any county campgrounds lately that aren't really nice. So yeah, you can't go wrong. And, you know, I think whatever county you're visiting in Iowa, the county park system is, I think, you know, probably the best in the nation. I guess that's why I've been working here for so long.
Don't tell anybody because we want to keep it a secret.
Yeah.
We will have to do a field trip up there again sometime and meet up with you again, Larry. And I don't know if anybody can hear me or not.
Yeah.
You can, okay. I'm having all kinds of problems with my internet connection. So I've been in and out, in and out. And I don't know what's going on here at all. It's on my end. So I'm going to leave this meeting, not to end the meeting, but if people want to ask questions and continue the discussion, because in 2 seconds, it could just freeze up all over again. I'll be starting all over, but it's been a wonderful program. And thank you, Larry. I'll look forward to getting together with you again sometime, and certainly getting up to Northeast Iowa. So with that, I'm going to leave, but the rest of you can stay on and chat, and that'd be great. So I think I'm going to call MediaCom, find out what the heck's going on with my computer here. Take care.
Yeah, good to
Thank
see
you,
you, Tom.
So Larry, in the chat, Sue and Chuck Lemaster own 75 acres from Clear Creek WMA across from Clear Creek WMA, and they have grouse and occasionally saw-whet owls. So they are wondering if you have seen the saw-whets.
I have not seen the saw-whets up there at Clear Creek. That's one of my favorite wildlife management areas to visit, and I get over there quite often during the season. But I have not seen the saw-whets. I know there's grouse there, up in the hills. But the saw-whet, that's great to hear. So I'm glad that did they say they were nesting, or is that a winter spot? Because there's a lot of eastern red cedar there, which would certainly be classic winter habitat. But they could be nesting there as well. Yeah, so that's great. That would be even better. But,
Yeah.
Awesome.
So another question from Scott Garrett. Does Larry know of any good public fossil hunting areas in Iowa besides the Rockford Fossil Park in Floyd County?
Oh, boy, so as far as the public areas go, here in Winneshiek County, and mostly Winneshiek County, Alameda County would have some their limestone, it tends to be a little bit older, and so the fossils there are, and they don't have the shale. But here in Winneshiek County, my best looking is just pretty much on our DNR wildlife areas, that if you can find what I would call a dry wash that is rock covered, down through it. And we have one, we actually have one area on our park system. It's called Black Oak Hollow. So if they're coming up here to look for fossils, of course, that area gets used quite a bit because it's right on the road. But there's a dry wash that runs right down along the road next to our Black Oak Hollow wildlife area. And that's a wonderful area to find the gastropod snails and the Galena sunflowers for sure. And sometimes the cephalopods, but usually my best hunting is just in the road cuts, which of course are all public. And if you can find a road cut with stone, especially if you see some shale that's coming out of it, that's a really good place to look there.
Larry, that Black Oak, you said, is that just east of Kendallville called Black Falls?
No, that Black Falls would be different. Now, Black Falls is a fantastic place, but that is private, and that is by invitation only there. That would have some great hunting, but you'd have, so Black Falls is south and mostly east and a little bit south of Kendallville. Black Oak Hollow is about, as the crow flies, 2 miles north and a little bit west of Kendallville.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. Yeah, if you ever get the chance to take a geology trip to Black Falls, this year it would be nothing to see because there's no water running over it. But after a rain, that is a magnificent sight to see.
About 40 years ago, Hurrock has that campground up in Kendallville. He and I went out on that road and walked down that stream to the falls. He wanted to show it to me. So we walked along that pasture on that water. And by the time we got to the falls, it was dry. We had about 6 foot of water in there, and there was 3 or 4 sinkholes in the stream, and you'd be walking down the stream and it'd be swirling around, and eventually that water would go down in the stream. By the time we got to the falls, there was no water going over the falls. But anyway, we had a heck of a good time. Yeah.
That's it. That's an excellent description, Charles, of what happens there, because it is a stream and it disappears. It swirls around. And, amazing.
Here too. Yeah.
Just as a note, follow-up to our discussion about the saw-whets at the Lemasters, Sue and Chuck did confirm that basically they just see them in the winter, but they do hope for nesting. So we will wish that wish that along
Yeah.
with them as well.
Yeah.
So when are the
That would be
cylindric?
great. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, when are the cylindric blazing stars in bloom?
Let me see. I would, they should be in peak bloom right around probably August, middle of August, I'd say, Candace. Yeah,
Oh, okay,
that would, yep, that would be the time to see the blazing star.
perfect. Is there a particular location? Is that a sensitive species that we shouldn't be sharing location?
Not that I know of,
Okay,
but you know, I would say just about any of the, you know, the problem with the goat prairies is most of them are private.
okay.
Oh, if you do want to see cylindric blazing star on a public area that's easily accessible, and it's not necessarily a goat prairie, but it's a dry prairie. We have a little preserve right here in Winnebago County, about 2 miles west of Spillville, and it's called Ludwig Preserve or Ludwig Prairie.
Oh, okay,
That has a nice population of cylindric blazing stars there.
thank you.
Also,
Can I just come hang out with you?
what's that?
Can I just come hang out with you?
There you
For
go.
like a year?
In the springtime, if you've not seen the birdfoot violet, that will be blooming there.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
Nice.
it's got some really nice plants there.
Yeah, all of the lady slippers and stuff, those would all be live flowers for me.
Oh,
Well, if you want to see like the yellow lady slipper, they have bloomed at the Black Oak Hollow, the place where
Okay,
the fossils. Another good place to see a yellow lady slipper, if you would, you know, a lot of effort, but there's what's it called? It's a bridge. Man, now it escapes me when I need to bring it up, but maybe it'll come to me. But there are some public areas in the Driftless here where you can find the yellow lady slipper. But
okay, thank you. All right. Anything else from anybody? Any other questions? Any other sightings that you all have enjoyed this fall? Anything good for the order? Want to remind you all about October 16th, the observation of the moon that David wrote about in the sky. So I'm looking forward to observing. And again, thank you, David, so much for that column. I have become so excited about watching Jupiter and Saturn all summer. If it's not cloudy, I am looking through my spotting scope at them and I'm recording the locations of Jupiter's galleon moons, and I'm just enjoying it so much. So thank you so much for that. And thank you for your work on the conservation articles for our newsletter as well, and for advocating for us. We appreciate that.
I did remember Iverson Bottoms would be the DNR area that would have yellow lady slippers. It's a big area, but on some of the kind of the north, or I guess in that case, it would be east facing slopes. You could find yellow lady slippers, and that would be usually right around the end of May, first part of June. Also, maybe the best place to see yellow lady slippers is not if you're just looking for a live flower. Hayden Prairie has hundreds of yellow lady slippers.
Okay, thank you.
And one final,
I've found some softwood owls around the Malafi Springs area. Malafi
Springs. Yep.
I found them there in years past where their cedar trees are close to the road. They'll be in the cedar trees in the wintertime.
Yep.
So you can find them there fairly easily.
Yeah, the saw-whet owls are probably more common up here than, you know, people give them credit for, but they're in lots of times fairly remote habitats. And in the wintertime, if the snow is deep and stuff, it's just hard to access those areas to try and find them. But they, you know, they are neat little birds. And I know you get some right down there. Where is it? Hickory Hills, I think. Is that where they kind of hang out in the wintertime there?
George West State Park and yeah, on Hickory Hills.
Yeah, that's cool.
And green belts as well, sometimes where they're pretty easy to find. So where's Malafi Springs? What's the nearest town to that, Francis?
So Malafi Springs, that is a state preserve in here in Winneshiek County. It is about maybe 4 miles north and west of Decorah. It's on
Oh, okay.
Bluffton Blacktop.
Oh,
So if you're
okay.
heading up to Bluffton to see
On
the
Bluffton
falls,
Blacktop.
well, Malafi Springs State Preserve, that's where there's the spring and the waterfall that I showed you earlier in the.
That's beautiful.
It's probably the premier spot in the Driftless region to see spring wildflowers. You will find the squirrel corn there if you're, you know, dedicated to looking for sure.
Perfect. At Hayden Prairie, often you can see short-eared owls, correct? And then occasionally the snowies are up there, not far from Hayden Prairie either. I know a number of years ago, Larry, you had some really fabulous pictures when there was about 3 or 4 of them hanging around
Right.
that
Yep.
winter. I remember your photos.
And they in those years they were found, you know, I'd see them occasionally on Hayden Prairie too, Candace, but
Mhm.
the last, I guess, at least 2 years, I have not seen a snowy owl up here. So
I haven't either. And
yeah, they haven't been erupting south, at least into this area. But one of the problems, there's been some major landscape changes where they used to live. There's like 3 additional CAFOs right there. So I'm guessing that may have, you know, altered the habitat enough, because before that area was nobody went there. I mean, you'd be the only person out there, and nobody lived out there, so there was no traffic. And now there's constant semis and trucks moving by. So I'm thinking that the snowy owls probably will never be coming back there again.
oh, shoot.
They just don't like all that disturbance. That's my thought anyway. But
And now that area in there is a good place to go to see snow buntings.
Next to
it's
CAFO.
Next
certainly,
to those CAFOs.
what's that?
Now, that same area where we saw those snowy owls and that CAFO and there, that 4 or 5 square mile area in there, good place to go see snow buntings.
They sometimes go and feed on the grain. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
But but again, last year there was just very few Lapland longspurs or snow buntings
Mhm.
area. I went out there looking multiple times, and you know, I saw a few, but no big flocks like, you know, some years that I've seen.
and Larry, one more question. I think it was last year when we were up there, we saw looked to be like a private pheasant business up there. Guy was
Right.
raising,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, there is, you know, it's been maybe 3 years ago now, but there was a birder from kind of the local area that went out there and photographed a gyrfalcon sitting on
Oh,
one of those covers.
yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
What it was at the time, I remember, you know, he sent it into the Iowa bird line. I think Brandon, you know, right away just kind of went ballistic over seeing that gyrfalcon, and people went up and never found it again.
uh,
Yeah, I remember that too. Sue and Chuck, LeMaster wondered if Heritage Valley might be a place for the cylindrical blazing stars too. Do you know,
Where
Larry?
did they say?
The Heritage Valley, which is in one of those Iowa
Yeah,
Um,
I would guess that the Heritage Valley should have the cylindric blazing star. I have not been there in the fall, so I can't say for sure. I'll try and, yeah, I'll try and find out. But that's a little late for now, but yeah, I know Jared and Brian, but I just haven't asked them if that plant is found there. And I have not tromped around there in the fall, so I don't know.
Any other questions or comments for the good of the group? Again,
Larry,
this
just
was-
want to thank you for your presentation again. We really learned a lot, and your pictures of both plants and animals and flowers are just beautiful. So thank you.
Thanks so much. Yeah, Bruce. One final thing I guess I'll say before maybe for those of you that are birders, as we move into November now, coming to the upper Mississippi River, if you like waterfowl canvasback staging in the upper Mississippi River above Harper's Ferry and up into Minnesota, and then of course the whistling swans, or what are they called?
the tundra swans.
Tundra.
Mhm.
The tundra swans coming down the river is such a fantastic, that's one of my favorite times of the year to be over there and to see and hear those sights and sounds. It's pretty fantastic. And that usually happens middle November to the end of November sometime. Depends a little bit on when the really cold weather comes, but that is spectacular sight to see. And usually there'll be sandhill cranes kind of moving down about that time too. So pretty cool.
Mhm.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, everybody, and thank you, Larry. So, and we will have this recording posted on our Praz YouTube channel later on, probably tonight, maybe tomorrow, depending on how cooperative the computer stuff is with me. And and we look forward to seeing everybody next month. And again, Larry, thank you so much again for sharing your photos with us on our Flickr feed and sharing your expertise. And yeah, it was so great to learn about flora, fauna, mammals, reptiles, everything. So really appreciate it. So, all
Well,
right.
Thank you all for inviting me and for joining in. So have a
Definitely.
great weekend.
Okay, you too.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.